Good morning, everyone. Cool. Thank you all so much for being here this morning. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. All the work that you're doing for children and families across Ohio and across the nation. I'm super excited to be here with you. What if I told you we've all been in a committed relationship most of our lives, and we may not have even known it? And it's someone we met really early on. And at the beginning, it was probably pretty thrilling. We liked the way that it took our breath away, it made our pulse race, our head was in the clouds. We all know the story. And as with any committed relationship, we settled into each other, the sweatpants came out, we ordered Chinese food instead of going out. And some of those quirks we didn't quite notice at the beginning started showing up. Like how much they always need our attention. It's like, I just walked through the door. Can you give me about 5 minutes? Let me take my shoes off, and then I'll pay attention to you. Their name? Stress. Now, here's the thing about stress. Although we've all had a committed relationship with it our entire lives, most of our relationships may be in turmoil. And for good reason. Most of us have learned that stress is bad for us, toxic even. And any semblance of it we have in our lives, we need to do everything in our power to avoid it or get rid of it completely. Now, there is some truth to this. Research does suggest stress could kill us, but only if we believe it will. And I'll say that one more time. Stress could kill us, but only if we believe it will. I've spent the better part of my clinical career working along young families and children who have experienced trauma. And during this time, I became incredibly interested on the impact this work had on the helpers, people like therapists, social workers, and educators. And what's interesting about this newer body of research is it suggests that stress isn't the problem. Getting stuck in our stress cycle without resolution is the issue. And if we can find more effective ways of leaning into our stress and completing that cycle, stress can actually promote problem solving, persistence, motivation, creativity, and even bravery. So stress, you may not be the issue, but a relationship might need some maintenance or couples counseling. Now, the more common concept around taking care of our stress is through self-care. Things like taking bubble baths, lighting candles, listening to Enya, and our stress is supposed to resolve itself. Now, I don't know about you, but the last time I got kicked in the shins by a kid or cursed out by a parent, I couldn't go, could you wait about 15 minutes? I need to go take a bubble bath to resolve my stress cycle. I'll be right back. Hold tight. The issue with most of what we consider self-care tasks is that they're either unavailable to us in the moment when we need them the most, or we might be using them at a point in the resolution of our stress cycle that is premature. Or let me put it this way. Imagine for a second you're in a heated argument with a significant other or a loved one. And in the midst of that argument, to get it to stop, you go in for a hug. That hug is a little bit like self-care. And two things can happen in this moment. One, you're caught in an incredibly awkward hug, going, this is a really bad idea. Please make this stop. When is this over? Or the hug felt good in the moment, but as soon as that hug is over, you're left wondering, what just happened? And did we actually resolve anything? So why isn't self-care alone working? Now, I'm not saying that self-care is a bad thing. In fact, it's a pivotal point in the resolution process, but one we may want to use towards the ends. So where do we begin? Researchers in this area have started coming up with a number of common themes. And one of the first ones that emerges is permission. And permission comes up in two forms. First, it's the permission to allow ourselves to feel the full range of emotions that accompany stress, things like frustration, anger, confusion, grief, loss, without trying to stop them or avoid them, and allowing ourselves choice. And sometimes that choice is in the form of saying yes. Yes, I'm willing to be uncomfortable. Yes, I'm willing to be challenged. Yes, I'm willing to go on top of the diving board and jump off into the unknown. And sometimes it's the form of saying no. That as we want to look inward, we hold a firm boundary in order to do so. And as we begin to cultivate, through permission, a sense in our bodies that although these intense experiences may be uncomfortable, our body learns to trust that they will naturally run their course and can be done so without harm. And so as we begin to trust in our stress, we can approach it with curiosity. Early on in my career, I started off as a community-based therapist. I was introduced to a young 4-year-old girl who was exhibiting extreme aggression. She lived in high crime, poverty, witnessed to domestic abuse and violence. And sitting in her home one evening, listening to her mother, the mother recounts a story and she goes, well, the other day we were entering our apartment, and as we were coming inside, the neighbors came out and started beating me with a baseball bat. The girls saw everything. They ran inside. I ran in after them. And here we are. Nothing is being done about it because this is the community that we live in. And then she goes on to say, Mr. Patrick, I know what you're trying to do to be helpful in teaching her how to use her words and not fight, but the reality is there are people in this community that want to harm us. And the only way she can stay safe and the only way I can keep her safe is for her to fight back. We cannot take that away from her. You can imagine as a young therapist, stress coursing through my body, making me feel overwhelmed and powerless, helpless, frustrated at this situation, embarrassed that what I was doing was unhelpful to this family, and ultimately this incredible urge to want to pluck this family out of this life circumstance and fix it for them. That a child should never have to be taught that the only way they can survive is to fight back, and for a mother to think that's the only decision she can make for her child. And in this moment, when we're feeling uncomfortable and recognizing stress, we ask ourselves with curiosity, what are these physical sensations and emotions trying to tell me, and how might they be helpful? And by doing so, I was able to understand that I could not fix this situation, nor should I. But it was my body's very direct way of telling me, slow down. Listen, really listen to what this mother just told you and what this family needs, and start there. And through curiosity, we understand that our stress is being helpful to us. It's allowing us to problem solve. It's allowing us to have motivation, persistence, creativity, and bravery, all the things we need to be able to work through cases. And as we understand that stress is trying to be helpful, we learn to move to acceptance. And acceptance is the reality that we are innately and biologically built to experience stress. It is a relationship we are going to have our entire lives whether we like it or not. So instead of avoiding it or trying to get rid of it, which we cannot do, why don't we accept it for its intended purpose, and that is to help us and to keep us safe? In my work as a community therapist, I was introduced to a young 5-year-old boy who had spent his entire life in foster care. He was significantly abused and neglected. And in our work together by the age of 7, because of his extreme behaviors, he had gone into an inpatient facility at least 3 times. The last time he went inpatient, his foster family relinquished their custody. His parents had long terminated their rights. He had no placement to go to because no one wanted him. He was an orphan. He was a ward of the state. trying to figure out where to place him and how to get him out of an inpatient facility after 3 months. In a teaming meeting with child welfare, they turn to me and they go, "Patrick, you seem to like this kid so much, and he seems to do pretty well with you. Why don't you foster him?" You can imagine, as a young 20-something-year-old therapist who had been in his career for a matter of years, being caught with an insurmountable choice and decision. And stress was right there, making me feel overwhelmed and helpless, frustrated and angry that I was even asked that question, and ultimately guilty. Because in that moment, I had to make a choice of either fostering a kid, of which I was not prepared to do, nor was my job, or say no and leave a kid in an inpatient facility of which I was his last remaining relationship. And luckily around this time, I had some wonderful mentors and supervisors who allowed me to do everything that I've been talking about today. Gave me permission to feel this way without trying to stop and avoid it. Giving myself curiosity of asking myself, what are these feelings and sensations trying to tell me and how might be helpful? And it was my body's way of telling me I wanted to be this kid's Superman. I wanted to save his life. And I couldn't, and that was painful. And by acknowledging that and accepting that, that feeling did not overwhelm me any longer. And I knew it was going to be part of this case and this work. And so instead of avoiding or getting rid of it, accepting that and using that energy to promote the problem solving, motivation, persistence, creativity, and bravery I needed for this case. And no, I didn't need to foster him. And yes, he found a foster family, and it was not without a lot of hard work and dedication. He got adopted. And that's where we can continue to use stress to promote the work that we're doing. And at this point, we can make a commitment again. And a commitment is that grounding force of why we do what we do day in and day out, although this work is hard and we are faced with adversity and pain in a lot of what we do. It is that grounding force that allows us to move forward. For many of us, it's the fame, it's the glory, and it's the money. It may not be the fame, the glory, or the money. For me, it is a 6-year-old boy I met in my first job as a day camp counselor, who before I even met him, I knew everything about how bad he was, how much of a troublemaker he would be for me, and how he didn't listen to nobody, and he was going to be a bad person when he grew up. And every morning I would arrive to camp before it opened, and there he was on a bench by himself for how God knows how long he was there, waiting. And I began to talk to him and began to learn he was a smart and bright and kind and a funny young boy, but he believed at 6 years old that he was a bad kid, that he was unworthy of love and affection. And I didn't know that then, but it is what I know as truth now, that why I'm committed to this work is that no child should go to bed or wake up believing that they're a bad kid. That it is the adults and the big people in their lives' obligation to ensure that every child feels unconditional love and affection, and we create environments that allow them to cultivate an understanding that there's hope in their future. And when times get hard, and when we need to be reminded why we endure the stress of this work, it is stories like that that need to ground us. And at this point in the resolution cycle, we can move into action. And action is what we classically consider our self-care tasks. But the key here is that self-care should be done as an intentional way of allowing us to have an experience where we can give ourselves permission, allow ourselves curiosity, allow us to accept these feelings and emotions, and allow us a time to commit or recommit to this work. Whether that's taking a bubble bath, lighting some candles, or listening to Enya, go for it, but as long as that's what is giving you that opportunity to do so. So my hope for everyone here today is maybe you entertain the thought of starting to lean into your stress a little bit more and starting to mend that relationship. And in closing, just a few short words borrowed by Amelia Nagoski, a researcher in this area. The cure for burnout is not self-care, it is all of us caring for one another. So we'll say it one more time. Trust your bodies, they know what they're doing. Be kind to yourself. You are enough just as you are right now. Your joy matters. Just lean in, and please tell everyone you know. Thank you so much.